Hello, public opinion aficionados, and welcome to Rasmussen Reports, the independent pollster and apparently media analyst who exactly predicted what would unfold this very chaotic Monday morning as the wheels fall off the Kamala Harris campaign and the few mainstream media outlets with a shred of credibility left realign themselves to introduce their viewers to a new concept. Kamala Harris might actually lose. And that's because we've been telling you for a long time the polling has not been good for her at all. But polling is hard to interpret, and mainstream media outlets can cherry pick and duck and wordsmith and create whatever kind of narrative they want. But ultimately, what it comes down to, at some point, they're going to want to retain their viewers. They're going to have to signal that this race, really, the momentum's going all for Trump. Now, I want to start with the Real Clear Politics aggregate, which at a national level has Harris pretty much stuck at about 2.1 points. It's really been flat there. And I'll note that basically they have Trump at a 47-point ceiling, Harris at about a 49-point ceiling. Almost the exact opposite of what I currently have right now, but whatever. The point is, going back 8 years, this is 3 points worse than Hillary Clinton was doing at this same point in the cycle. And going back just 4 years, Joe Biden was favored in the polls by like 10 points. So she isn't really close to either of these situations. Now, you'll look at us and you'll say, oh, look, you're the only red. And, that's because some of the other high quality pollsters who agree with us haven't been putting out polls as frequently. I think you'll see some Trafalgar's, Atlas Intels, and probably even New York Times pop back up showing a Trump positive race here. But look, Yahoo News just came out with a poll that shows a tie. One of the other things I want to point out here is just there's not a lot of polling. We're a month out from a hotly contested election, and the pollsters just don't really seem to be that interested. And I'll tell you, these last two polls, which finished polling Friday, they could have dropped Friday and been picked up in the Sunday news cycle, but they didn't seem to want these results talked about in mainstream media news outlets. And let's take a quick look at why. Here are the Yahoo News results, and Yahoo shows a tied race. But very importantly, I'll say that a month ago, just after the presidential debate, they had Harris up 50% to 45%. Now, again, polls swing around because of statistical noise, but that's a really big movement. One could wonder, was she really up 50 to 45 back then? I don't, especially when the previous polling was really a lot closer. Maybe it was just an outlier. But what I also wanted to point out here too, I couldn't find crosstabs. I didn't look very hard. But again, we see the same kind of pattern of them. Yeah, here. Put another way, Waltz's favorable rating is still 3 points higher than his unfavorable rating. So he's above water 3 points. But Vance is still 11 points lower. He's underwater 11. So they give Tim Walz a 14-point favorable advantage in this poll, which means to me that they're polling really blue Democrats, really blue Republicans, and probably left-leaning independents as well. And yet they still show the race tied. With this incredible sandbag, I'll tell you, people really don't know that much about Walz and Vance. And if you have a negative opinion of J.D. Vance right now, it's basically because you watch MSNBC. I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. So I don't think they're getting a representative sample of America. Now, we can also look at this one here. Now, people call these guys a high-quality pollster from previous cycles. But I will say their methodology this time around seems a little bit different. I'm not sure if they're using different people for field work. I know it's 100% panel now, and the previous ones were not. But again, they're showing the race going to Harris by 3 points and a ton of leftward movement. They had the race only Harris +1 in August. But ultimately, what it comes down to, look at this. Look at their independent results. They have Harris winning among independents by 16 points. I think that's more than even Biden won independents by in the 2020 exit polling numbers. Again, our results, I'll just look at them quick. Here are the crosstabs from last week. Again, for the fourth week in a row, we showed Donald Trump beating Kamala Harris 49 points to 47 points and winning independents by a pretty strong 7. So we have a totally different view of independence than them. And I guess we'll find out who's right. But if their independence looked like ours, they'd have obviously Trump up massively as well. So this is not a good situation for Kamala Harris. Look, even Quinnipiac has a tie in the national popular vote. This is the best Trump's been doing in the national polling in like the last decade. And I think Republicans are going to find themselves in a really strange spot, actually having, the upper hand in October. Now, I don't think that Trump voters are going to get complacent or anything, or it's going to affect the way that people turn out. But really, it's crazy. It might change the race in ways that we're not able to predict, because it almost seems like the Democrats are used to having that higher ground. They're used to the unified view that they're voting for the winner and that they're the majority view in America. And that is not the case this time around. We're going to have to see how it plays out. But here's Pennsylvania. And I've been saying this over and over again. Anybody who knows polling can look at this page and says that this pretty much tells us that Trump is going to win. Pennsylvania is a must-win state for Kamala Harris, and it's an exact tie here. There's some good pollsters that show Trump up, Trafalgar +3, Atlas Intel, Trump +3. Emerson's pretty good, maybe slightly left-leaning. They have the race a tie. We had the race a tie as well. But look at this. 4 years ago, the polling showed that Biden was going to win by 7 points. He won by slightly more than 1. So this is like a 5.5, 6-point polling miss. And then 8 years ago, Hillary Clinton lost Pennsylvania, but it said she was winning at this point in the race by 7.5. That is, we're getting up there in the sort of 9-point polling error range. If there is any leftward polling error at all, Donald Trump is winning the race, which is why we've been watching Polymarket, because for the longest time, the Real Clear Politics page has shown that deadlock, and so has Polymarkets. Now, I definitely think that this betting market is manipulated, but this is a very unnatural neck and neck, like 49, 50% for almost a month. And all of a sudden, after the vice presidential debate, the market broke. And Donald Trump is running away with it, now leading by 11 points in Polymarkets in Pennsylvania. In my opinion, this is the first domino to fall in a media rearrangement around a new narrative that Kamala Harris is the underdog. And that's what I expected to play out this week. And it is exactly what we're seeing. But not only did Pennsylvania break, listen, you can interpret polls a lot of different ways. There's no other way to interpret this than Donald Trump is winning the election right now. And if you go and look at this sea of red. He's up soundly in Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania now. Pretty sure that Wisconsin or Michigan are going to be the next ones to flip. I bet you we'll even see some look at that. Look at how much the race closed. Now, I think there's probably a lot of volume, a lot of trading going on here, maybe some dark money being put to work. But these markets can really only hold out so long, and we saw that on the national scale as well. Let me rewind this. This is what played out just this morning. So again, for a longest time, for like a month, the race has been back and forth. Kamala Harris got up after her debate, and it's really been kind of range bound in the 49 to 50 point range. But then all of a sudden, this morning, out of nowhere, Donald Trump was creeping up, to a few points lead. And then there was this like flash spike of buying for Donald Trump, and he was up almost 10 points. Looks like there's been some oscillations, but Trump is now up a pretty steady 7 or 8 points here in Polymarkets. He is winning in the betting markets. That is impossible to misinterpret for even the most simplest minds within the mainstream media. So what are the ramifications of how that plays out? You're starting to see cracks appear. You're starting to see little hints by these people, the ones that can give them, that, the bubble you're in might not be correct. You might be in an echo chamber. There is a chance that Kamala Harris is actually incompetent and unlikable, like the polls told us all. before the end of July. CNN's Harry Enton illustrates what the Electoral College could look like if the polls are off, like there were in 2020 and 2016. What a profound time to question this. Back in 2020, the polls underestimated Donald Trump. If that happens again, Donald Trump carries all these Great Lakes battleground states, carries Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina as well. He gets 312 electoral votes. Bottom line, if we hit an era like we did 4 years ago, Donald Trump is going to win this election. Kamala Harris is going to lose. Now, I don't know if the polling error is as bad as it was 4 years ago, but I mean, just looking at the crosstabs over and over again of these suppression polls, the average industry error is certainly still left. Then there's this. I mean, like I said, some media outlets can do it, some can't. And it looks like MSNBC is digging in for a Trump win insurance policy, accusing Donald Trump of preparing the country for a civil war. These people are absolutely insane. But then you have this. This to me reminds me of, there's this reek of consumed product, of like Hollywood marketing that Kamala Harris's campaign just exudes. They put all this money into a movie. They did the best they can, but it's definitely got some woke stuff, but they really needed it to succeed. So what do? They put out talking points. They focus on those talking points. But if there's literally anybody who strays outside the lines, they attack them as racist, misogynist, whatever. NBC's Andrea Mitchell blames diverse, multiracial misogyny. Harris has such a problem with men. I think there's an undercount of the Trump vote. I think that there's misogynation in all of this. Incredible. Then you got this, New York Magazine, Kamala's come down. How the Harris campaign became a grim slog. That's not what you want about your campaign from a left-leaning magazine going into October. It's incredible. And then there's this, which, in my opinion, absolutely defies all explanation. CBS's 60 Minutes is having Kamala Harris on for an interview tonight, and the previews that they put out are just absolutely cataclysmic for Kamala. Punting on the question about Netanyahu, word salad answers. They asked her about her economic plan and then pressed her on how she would actually pay for it, and then implied that her solution wasn't real world. This is a CBS that just a week ago went all in on Kamala Harris by fact-checking only one candidate in the vice presidential debate, and their polling has been shilling for the Democrats hard. In some of their polls, they had Carrie Lake down 13 points in Arizona, which is not going to happen. So I really have no idea what's going on here. Are they really going to kill the Kamala Harris campaign in the crib tonight on 60 Minutes? I guess maybe. Could just be a ploy for ratings. And then there's this one out of, again, CNN. Harris's border visit and economy speech capture attention as warning signs emerge for campaign. Not what you want anybody saying about you in October. I mean, this is just stunning. You're going to see more and more of this all week. I think it's going to be a horrible week for her. And the momentum, how is she going to turn it around? Like I said before, they need an act of God, because this campaign, this woman, her policies, her plans do not have enough substance to get them to election day. But let's talk about the pollsters. Scott Adams said something very astute today. The polling true-up begins now. And my comment is some will true up, but others will just disappear. They're just going to sit October out and take their licks and hope that they do better next time, I guess. But others are going to move right. And we already see some signs of some people retroactively moving their stuff to the right. If everybody who's been following me remembers back in August, I came on and absolutely ranted about New York Times Siena, who dropped these swing state polls in the middle of basically a zero polling period that showed that Donald Trump was doing very poorly in the swing states. Now, when I went in and looked, you could tell that literally every single one of those states was oversampled with Biden 2020 supporters, and I called them out for it. They had the numbers. They knew that really the headline numbers were more Trump support than they actually reported, and we see that we do oversample Trump supporters, and we actually do correct with the recalled vote. But in an act of, I don't know what it is, Nate Cohn from New York Times, I guess he's preparing his viewers that, Trump is actually doing better than even our top lines at the New York Times Siena poll suggest. he showed what all of their polls to date this cycle would look like if they did wait for the recalled vote. And we're talking about Harris +4 in Pennsylvania going to Trump +1. Michigan going 2 points to the right to Trump +1. Wisconsin, 3 points to the right to Trump +1. North Carolina, Trump +6 now. Yeah, right. North Carolina's in play. Arizona actually going the other way, but then Georgia going from Trump +4 to Trump +6. And everybody calls them a battleground. Now, you could say, all right, well, at least you could look at the crosstabs and say this, or at least you could like look at his reporting and say, okay, whatever. But all of these numbers on the left here are what went into the Real Clear Politics aggregate. The industry leans left. That's it. Trump is winning. And on that note, I will bring up our most recent overnight results that have now been expanded to nearly 500. We're actually going to get over 500, I think, tonight and do that for the rest of the time out between now and Election Day. So that should tighten the crazy swings that people have been complaining about. But again, these are small individual samples, not a poll. And so we expect a bunch of statistical noise, but it doesn't seem like there's been that much noise last night because Trump is still up a stunning 5 points over Kamala Harris. He was up 7 points the last night we polled Thursday night, although Kamala Harris had a night where she was up by 3. And the moving averages are diverging again. So I don't know if this means that this week on Thursday, we're going to see something more like a Trump +3. I guess we got to wait and see. But just so you know, I mean, I'm doing everything I need to. I'm weighting by gender, age, race, and party. I'm also rating by region now to make sure we get good regional coverage. And I'm weighting by the 2020 recalled vote, forcing a -4 sandbag to Trump supporters in my poll, weighting them 49% Biden to 45% Trump. And still, here we are. And it's all because of the massive swing in independence that we've seen over the last 4 years due to the horrible Joe Biden presidential administration. So I hope everybody learns something and follows me for the rest of the election season, and even after it, because I can't wait to get back into all the issue polling that we do when all of the horse race stuff is gone. And it might get kind of fun here because I think we're going to see a lot of Monday morning quarterbacks and minds exploding and a lot of hilarious stuff to point and laugh at. But quite frankly, we could also see some major surprises here. Again, if you're a Trump supporter, you probably just do whatever you keep on doing. I'm doing this as a public service because I just hate it when mainstream media outlets lie to everybody. If you agree, please like the video. Follow us on YouTube at Rasmussen_poll or at Rumble if that's your thing. Follow us on X, not Twitter, at Rasmussen_poll as well, or at Mark_R_Mitchell. And thanks for watching.